All right, thank you for joining us back from Brackets of Family. Like we told you before we went for that break, that we'll be having a guest in the house, and our guest is seated in the building with us. We'll be looking at the crisis rocking our sister country, talking about South Sudan, and a whole lot of lives have been lost, but we are not, in tandem with what is happening in that part of the world, because either we like it or not, we are brothers. And we have with us today the ambassador of South Sudan to Nigeria, Mr. Rick Pyok Rick. Good morning and thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Very quickly, let's look at what is happening in your country. Talking about South Sudan, could you please give us a brief of exactly what the problem is?
Um, Once again, thank you. To be precise, at the outset, we did not know the cause of the last fighting until later on when it started and some people were executed. What we know so far is that the fighting started by one of the members of the military of the first vice president at the rank of lieutenant colonel. On the 7th, he killed 10 of our soldiers, 10 of the government soldiers. It was a stop at the checkpoint, and there he did not want to comply with the instructions. And when he was asked to stop, he immediately pulled out his rifle and started shooting, killing 10 of the government soldiers. That was on the 7th. Then on the 8th, the president called the vice president and some members of the cabinet to discuss the insecurity in the capital. While in a meeting, a shooting occurred outside the palace, and everyone was surprised with what was happening outside, and people took cover until the shooting stopped. When the shooting stopped, people went out to see the root causes, and a lot of people were found dead, and among them was the officer that caused the incident yesterday on the 7th. So this is the genesis of the problem. Yeah.
So as it stands now, what is the resolution of the president? Is he trying to try to merge both armies and having a single united force, or we still have this division within the military in South Sudan?
You know, we have SPLA as an army, as a national army, was one until December 15, 2013, when the war broke out. Then it divided. The vice president then left with a number of troops, and he started fighting the government. Now, when the agreement was made, in the provisions of the agreement says the two armies should stay separate for a period of 3 years at least. Then people work now to integrate the two armies. So the transitional government of national unity was just formed about 2-3 months ago, and it was starting about a month ago. It was formed in early May.
Okay.
Yes. So people were working towards resolving some of those problems and some of those provisions of the agreement. So the president was implementing the agreement with the vice president, who now became the first vice president. So the work was going on to integrate the two armies.
Okay, so if you think the President Salva Kiir was implementing this agreement as agreed with the first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar, is it enough for one to think a lieutenant from the military camp of the first vice president would go on a rampage and shooting? Isn't it suggesting that there is something missing? Isn't it suggesting that perhaps we have not had, a way to resolve this problem totally?
I think the leadership is determined to solve the problem. But the issue at hand is that there were some indisciplined soldiers within the first vice president camp. This indiscipline That is what's caused the incident. So they are not listening to the instructions of their commander-in-chief, who is the first vice president. So it's an issue of indiscipline within the first vice president camp.
Okay, do you think the ceasefire can actually broker any peace? You know, because we also learned that the United Nations, you know, we're actually working out modalities to ensure that there is a ceasefire. And over 42,000 people have fled their homes. Do you think that could bring in any peace?
Actually, I don't know. We don't have any knowledge that United Nations is working to do any mediation, because the president has already declared ceasefires and was also seconded by the first vice president, so there is ceasefire.
Okay.
Now the president also issued a decree giving amnesty to all those soldiers that participated in the last fighting and to come back. And he's calling on the vice president to come and assume his duties. Yesterday there was a meeting of the cabinet and was attended by some members of the vice president group who did not leave the town. So now the president is calling the vice president to come. Let us continue with the implementation of peace. Whatever happened, we forgive each other and we move on. So there is process. The government is putting in place steps to move forward with the implementation of the agreement. Has not collapsed, and the vice president is welcome to come at any time to resume his job. We don't know where he is, but we believe he's around. He's not far away from the capital.
So, if that has been fruitful so far, why are you calling on Nigeria to intervene?
Well, in any agreement, there are provisions that are difficult to implement, and that can bring friction, and that can bring conflict, more conflict. That is why we are calling on Nigeria to come and help. You know, there are some provisions that needs to be explained more, needs to be maybe delayed, some others come forward, and so on and so forth. So while you are implementing, you need the support of everyone else to guide you through the process.
Okay, have you been able to make any achievement so far? Have you been able to achieve any substantive agreement so far on the side of the Nigerian government? Are they willing to assist? Are they willing to help?
Oh, Nigerian government is assisting. Before the first vice president went to Juba, he was here.
Okay.
He met with His Excellency President Buhari, and to our knowledge, it was a very good meeting. And when he left from here, the president asked him to please implement the agreement and assume your office in Juba, and he did. He went to Juba and assumed his office. Also, about a week ago, President Salva, His Excellency the President, sent his envoy here and met with President Buhari and also told his commitment. So Nigeria is involved, but what we are looking for is
much more
vigor in the process.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, colleagues. So when you say much more vigor in the process, could you be a little bit specific? What exactly do you want Nigeria to do? What
exactly we want Nigeria to do is to be part of the implementation mechanism. That we have two groups that are helping. One is called, which is the direct mediator, is guided by the IGAT, which is a regional organization of some Eastern African countries. Then you have the Troika, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Norway. And then you have friends of the Troika. And then there is something called IGAT Plus. That's where Nigeria is a member.
Okay.
IGAT Plus, these are the people that are helping Nigeria. So Nigeria is already involved, but at a higher level would be much better.
Okay, Your Excellency, the United Nations thinks that they need to send in the presence of more troops, but you are opposed to that because you say you have everything under control, but it does appear as though it may not be totally under control. That's how come you came calling on Nigeria. So why are you opposed to having the UN send in more troops into your country?
We are not opposing. UN is already present in South Sudan. It has over 12,000 troops. So if there is nothing can be done by 12,000, I think 50,000 cannot do anything. So these 12,000 uh, are scattered all over the country, but the bulk of it is in the capital. So you have at least 8,000 to 9,000 troops in the capital. So these 8,000 or 9,000 can do a lot of work. It's just that their mandate need to be revamped. It needs to be strengthened.
But the United Nations Security Council thinks otherwise.
I think maybe ill-advised. They are advised different because they are humans like everybody else. And when you are advised wrongly, then you can take wrong decision. But when you listen to both sides, then you now have a good picture to take the right approach to solve the problem. So we are saying, we are not refusing, but we are saying you have enough. Revamp what you have and see if that is not enough. Then now we can talk about maybe bringing more troops or help from outside. But what they have is enough, because that is more militarization of the country. And we are against militarization. That is why you have a lot of armed groups scattering around the country. So it would be better to demilitarize the country, not to add more.
All right, very quickly, we have a report on South Sudan, and we want our viewers to have a look of what is happening in our sister country. Please, we'll be right back after this clip.
It's about 5 years after South Sudan got its independence from mainland Sudan after decades of acrimony. But since then, Africa's newest country had not known peace. After a few periods of relative peace brokered by the international community, the capital, Juba, has in recent times witnessed clash between troops loyal to the president and those of the vice president. But speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the South Sudan High Commissioner to Nigeria insisted that the president has always acted in line with the peace deal.
As you all know, the government of the Republic of South Sudan has accepted to bring peace to the country by signing the compromise peace agreement. The government was moving forward with the implementation of the agreement until this interruption occurred. The SPLA, IO, and other political parties became members of the Transitional Government of National Unity, which was formed, and the leader of the rebels, which has been appointed as the first vice president of the Republic.
He agrees that in spite of the countries is nowhere close to attaining peace. The diplomat now wants Nigeria to do what it did in other African countries with similar situation.
Our call for West Africa has just come now. A week ago, we had an special envoy sent by the President of the Republic to meet the President, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, and deliver a message. And this message goes along this line that I'm telling you this morning, that we are requesting Nigerian assistance, we are requesting Nigerian help to bring peace about in the country. The power to bring peace to South Sudan. Nigeria has done it in Sierra Leone.
Okay, that was the address you actually made yesterday, and so very, very straight to the point and all that. And now I want to know, how safe is Juba for the return of the first vice president? Because reports making the rounds, indicates that he's no longer feeling safe, in his own country. So how safe is Juba for the first vice president to return and assume duties?
After every fight, there are hard feelings. And when the fight finishes, some people may feel insecure. Maybe he's feeling insecure. But to assure you, everybody at the highest level of the government is welcoming the vice president back. He is more welcome. And also the friends of South Sudan can help in his security if he's not secure. If he feels he's not secure in the capital, you have the UN, you have the African Union. They can be responsible for the security in the capital. So the capital is safe for everyone. So people now are going about their businesses. People are doing their usual things and so on. But there were loss of life, and loss of life happen in any conflict that involve gunfire.
Wouldn't this be the reason why the UN Security Council thinks they need to send in more troops just so uh, the capital city is safe enough for the return of Dr. Rick Makar?
No, I think UN is wrong on this, because if there is a need, because his security actually was not under UN before this conflict. He was having his own security. But if they want now, they have the troops in Juba. They can also be part of his security. But to bring an additional troop is just off point. It's pointless. This is more militarization of the country, as we have said. This is complicating the matters, because they may not be seen as people who are coming for help, but the public will see them as invaders, and that is very dangerous in itself. So UN need to do more to change its image, because the image of UN in South Sudan is very negative. People were fleeing. People were fleeing, and they were not helping. They were not helping. Most of the people who were killed in the crossfire were trying to get to the UN compound for protection, and they rejected it. They refused it. They refused. People were stopped outside for hours and hours and hours. So UN need to do more with what they have in South Sudan, not what they bring as new, because what will be the point?
Okay, could you see the action of the colonel that actually triggered all of this as a calculated attempt, to unseat the current administration in South Sudan?
These are rumors, we have not seen them, and what I told you, the narrative that I told you happened, is the truth, is the story, that it was started by this colonel, but his motives, we had wished he would have been alive, so he can be interviewed and find out exactly who was behind his actions. Yeah.
So you think there are no coup plots or
no, there's no coup
plans and all that?
No, there's no coup plot. If there is, it will happen, because now the president, I think that was before the shooting, the president instituted a committee for investigation led by one of Mashar colleagues, who is the Minister of Interior. So that committee of investigation will now take its duty seriously to investigate the incident.
Yeah, why I actually asked is the fact that when the president actually called for a meeting, there was also, a kind of gun battle, while the meeting was going on with the president and some other cabinet members. That was why I was asking, maybe there are elements of coup in the whole process.
No, there was no element of coup, because this fighting, nobody knows the cause. The cause is related to the lieutenant colonel, whose body was found at the scene, who caused the previous incident, who shot at the 10 soldiers and killed the 10 soldiers.
But this suggests some dissatisfaction within the camp of Riek Machar. What do you think?
We would never know their level of satisfaction, but we know that they have started the trouble.
Because the lieutenant colonel, okay,
he might be dissatisfied with something. We don't know his motive, and that's why I said we wish he lived.
Alive,
He's alive, so we can now find out exactly what were his motives and who was behind him. But his satisfaction, of course, we would never know it, because human heart. That's why we have the issues of people. Sometimes they come with their bombs hidden somewhere. And then they pretend to be doing nothing, unless you have an X-ray that will X-ray the motives of human being. That's when you can know in advance that what do they want.
Okay, talking about demilitarization of South Sudan, how has the government fared on this count in trying to rehabilitate and make the citizens believe in South Sudan as their own nation?
Correct. The government was working toward that, and even before the incident of December 2013, there was a process of collection of guns and arms from the hands of civilians, because the country is saturated with guns and all forms of guns you can find in South Sudan. So the government was in the process of collecting these things. We have a large number of cattle herders in South Sudan. Where I come from, we are cattle keepers, and we protect our cattle because they have cultural value. So we own a lot of guns to protect our communities and to protect our wealth, which is the so it is dangerous. So the government was working to collect the arms from people until this interruption happened in 2013.
Okay, 5-6 years down the line since your country, South Sudan, gained independence from the nation called Sudan itself, and some of us from this other part of the world thinks that developmental process should be in the mind of every citizen of Sudan. But it's quite unfortunate that as young as South Sudan is, we are seeing this crisis. Do you think the current leadership, has the power and the political will to ensure that the peace experienced in South Sudan before now is sustained? Or will you want to backtrack and maybe take a change of mind and maybe go back to where you belong to?
Well, our history with the Sudan is a very long history that was full of violence and revolutions and so on. So when
was that the reason why you decided to fight for your own independence?
There are too many reasons that led to the decision to fight for our freedom or for our independence, to have our own country. We were not treated equal in the former Sudan. Okay. South Sudan, as part of the problem, which we are now discussing, was left undeveloped, and the resources were leaving from South Sudan to develop the north. There were not enough schools. There were only one universities for over 13 million people. Wow. Health system was down to zero. There was a lot of problems that led to that. And then when we identify ourselves with our brothers in the north, it was a challenge. We were not accepted. So that what led to the liberation and the people deciding to break away from Sudan. There were people who were against it, against us breaking away from South Sudan, including our late leader, Dr. John Garang. He was also against it. He thinks that Sudan can be one, but there can be social equality and then economic equality and political equality. But the majority of South Sudanese decided otherwise. There will never be a united Sudan again. It will never happen for too many reasons. But what we have now is to stabilize the political system. Once the political system is stabilized, then now you move to stabilizing the social fabric of the country. Then developments comes in. So you have to have two processes that will go simultaneously. One will not wait for the other. You have the political development, and then also you have the social development, and then you will have immediately the physical development of the country. So this is why we are looking for people who have the experience, who have been there and done that. And Nigeria is a very good example. Nigeria is a diverse country, and the leadership is keeping it together. So this is where we can turn to for help.
And so when you ask the headsmen to return to give you the guns and you're finding difficulties, what were the alternatives you had in front of you for them to consider before turning in their guns?
They were given choices. They were given help. They were being taught some other ways of protecting their wealth. Which
like what?
First of all, have a new way of farming. A new way of farming. Introducing, not having 10,000 cattle. What do you do with them? You have to use them for economic benefit. So people were being trained to use these cattle to market, sell them. There are people who are lacking meat. You sell them to these people. Keep at least 200 manageable size of herds, and then you can now keep them in one place instead of roaming around the country, causing problem and destroying livestock. Destroying crops of other communities who are not also cattle herders. So that process was going on, and people were receiving it. So when you have conflict, things tend to be difficult to be implemented.
Okay, aside cattle rearing, what else do the people of South Sudan do?
We have agrarian societies too, people that practice agriculture. We have fisheries. We have a lot of activities that can be developed to contribute to the larger economy other than the oil resources and other minerals.
So what type of measures has the government of South Sudan put in place to ensure that those folks who are not into cattle rearing carry on with their, businesses?
The government recently bought a lot of tractors to introduce mechanized farming at a larger scale. The government encouraged people to borrow from the agricultural bank. We had just established an cooperative bank, agricultural and cooperative banks. So there were people who were being encouraged to also take advantage of the financial system to develop their farming activities instead of having a small family farm. You have it at a larger scale that can also go to the market. So those were introduced, and people now are thinking, especially in the wake of the lower oil prices, because our economy depends 96% on oil. Yeah.
Okay, very quickly before we let you go, the current political crisis in your country has actually caused a whole lot of devastation on the Sudanese people, and there are imminent shortage of food, and I think over 3 or 4 million people are out there, in dire need of shelter and all of that. Now, what is your government, what is your government going to do? I know you're part of the government, that's why you are an envoy.
Sure.
Yeah. So what is this administration going to do in order to ensure that the plight and the sufferings of the Sudanese people, is actually taken care of, at least in the shortest possible time, because that's the only way that you can have and maintain peace in that part of the world.
Sure. First of all, before I can go deeper into explaining, one thing the government has done is to make sure that the rural population have enough.
Okay.
And the problem that we have in South Sudan is only in the cities, in the towns, people who depend on the market economy, people who depend on the goods that come from outside. We are a landlocked country. Yeah. We depend on our neighbors to open the roads so that we can bring commodities and goods. So, but once you have a conflict, then everything tends to depend on the other. So the conflict has to be resolved for us to do anything to help people. But those who have gone to the countryside are much better than those who are in towns, because we have been like that for many years. We have been depending on our rural areas to bring us the food we need, to bring us the help we need to sustain our towns. But then now towns have developed. They need other things. They need fuel, they need car parts, they need all of these things. You cannot have them unless you have borders open. So, and then conflict. So you can develop the economy and get these commodities out. So the plans are there. The main issue that we need to resolve now is stop the conflict and help the country.
All right, thank you so very much for finding our time to be here today. We know you are a very busy man, but we sincerely want to say a big thank you for coming.
God bless you.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is how much time will permit us on our interview segment with the Ambassador of Sudan, Mr.
South Sudan.
The Ambassador of South Sudan, Mr. Riek Pyok Riek. Can you pronounce that name for me? Let me hear. Riek. Pok.
Riek.
Riek. Pok.
Riek.
All right, Mr. Riek Pyok Riek. That's the correct pronunciation. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. God bless you.
All right. After the short break, we'll be talking sports. Please stay with us.
Are we done?